Brought to you by Thomas Allgaier and Freenus. This edition highlights key LinkedIn posts on commercial fleets from weeks 10 and 11. Freenus supports automotive enterprises and consultancies with market, customer, and competitive intelligence in the commercial fleet sector, with a strong focus on digital solutions and emerging technologies.
Right, so we are jumping into another deep dive today.
We absolutely are. And welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, we're looking at the top commercial fleet trends that we've seen across LinkedIn lately.
Yeah, and the overarching mission for our discussion today is really exploring this massive shift in the mobility industry. We're finally moving away from just, collecting raw data and testing theoretical what-ifs.
Right, well, theory phase.
Exactly. We are moving into actual, physical, on-the-ground, operational execution, which is honestly where the magic happens.
Oh, for sure. Because if you're managing a fleet today, your day-to-day is likely just a nonstop juggling act.
Oh, yeah.
Just scattered data, competing priorities, and, razor-thin margins.
Yeah, and historically, the default solution was just to throw more tracking tech at the problem, right? Like just monitor everything.
Right, which feels like surveillance.
Yeah.
But Steve Lockington brought up some really interesting insights regarding geotab vitality.
Whoa, I saw that.
Yeah, and it totally flips that surveillance philosophy on its head. They're moving from monitoring drivers to actually motivating them.
Yeah, and the psychology there is just critical because in the past, telematics basically acted as a digital stick. A driver gets a bad scorecard for harsh braking. They get pulled into a windowless office for coaching. It's an inherently negative interaction.
Nobody wants that.
Exactly. But Lockington highlighted a fleet that introduced personalized goals, like right in the cab. The drivers are actually earning tangible rewards for improving their metrics.
So it's gamified.
Right. They gamify the good habits instead of punishing the bad ones. And the numbers are staggering. In just a 60-day period, safe driving behavior improved by 31%.
Wait, really? 41% in just 2 months?
Yeah, 2 months. And he noted a 443% return on investment alongside that.
That is wild. But under those flashy numbers, what's actually changing in the operational culture to make that ROI happen?
Well, it really comes down to driver retention. Lockington's data showed a 43.9% reduction in driver turnover.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and recruiting new drivers is incredibly expensive. So when safety becomes something they actively participate in and get rewarded for, they stay longer.
Right, so the ROI isn't just avoiding crashes, it's cutting the cost of employee churn.
Exactly.
Which actually brings up an analogy I couldn't stop thinking about. Corey Coslin posted about physical hardware in the cabs, specifically fleet cameras.
Oh, right, the smartphone analogy.
Yes, he said using an AI-equipped fleet camera, strictly as a crash cam, just to prove fault, is like buying a high-end smartphone just to use the calculator app.
That hits the nail perfectly on the head. Because Coslin pointed out that actual commercial collisions happen roughly once in a million miles.
A million miles.
Right. So if your entire camera budget is justified just for litigation or insurance, proving the other guy was at fault, you're leaving immense operational value on the table.
So what should fleets be doing for the other 999,000 miles?
They should be scanning for operational friction, like using the cameras for routing optimization, identifying where drivers are constantly facing parking bottlenecks or loading dock delays.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and using it for continuous driver coaching, completely detached from an actual accident context.
That makes sense. But let's talk about the insurance angle for a second. Because Mark Jatzak from OpenEyes offered a pretty sobering reality check there.
Oh, he really did.
Yeah, because a lot of operators just assume, hey, I install GPS, I put high-tech cameras in the cab, my insurance premiums are just going to magically drop.
And Jatzak was super clear about this. Underwriters do not care about your shiny new tech stack.
Nope.
They don't care about your sleek UI. They deal in risk and liability. They only care about documented, undeniable behavior change and compressed claims timelines.
Meaning you have to actually translate your operational improvements into a language the underwriter respects.
Exactly. If you can't prove you're actively reducing loss frequency, you're just another fleet carrying expensive hardware.
Right. But wait, if you fully activate all these cameras to capture that behavioral data, don't you just get completely overwhelmed with alerts?
Oh, totally. Data fatigue is a massive secondary problem.
Right, which is where AI actually gets practical. Josh Otterson from Fleetio and Claude Hochreutner weighed in on this. AI isn't about predicting every single failure perfectly.
No, it's about context and filtering. Otterson noted that the vast majority of alerts in a fleet's daily operation are just routine.
But they still eat up managerial time.
Exactly. So the real value of AI is acting as this filtering co-pilot. It reinforces the routine stuff in the background and only flags the highly risky exceptions.
Like a stoplight signal.
Right. But, and this is critical, Harutner warned about false positives. They will absolutely destroy system confidence.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, if an AI dashcam constantly flags a driver for a hazard when they're just making a safe, tight turn, the driver gets frustrated. They'll just put tape over the lens.
Right. They just tune it out. So the AI has to be precise.
Exactly. But, optimizing the driver and filtering data only gets you so far. To drive down life cycle costs, you eventually have to optimize the powertrain itself.
Electrification, which is our next big theme. And the math here is shifting so fast. Jamie Sands shared a really compelling perspective on this.
Yeah, his point about the battery math.
Right. He argued that if you're building an EV business case based on today's battery prices, you are essentially building your foundation on sand.
Because of the massive scaling happening in the background, the heavy-duty battery sector benefits from the exact same gigafactory scaling as the passenger EV market.
Right. So the math that didn't work in 2024.
It's going to be undeniably profitable by 2026. If you delay your strategy because of an outdated spreadsheet, you risk falling way behind.
And we are seeing that global momentum. Steph Cornelis from Transport and Environment and Eamon Mulholland shared some stark data. China is leading heavy truck EV share by a mile, 29% last year.
29% is just monumental for global supply chains.
It really is. But let's be fair. China has heavy state mandates and massive subsidies. Can we expect European or North American fleets to organically replicate that pace?
Well, policy kickstarts the market, but operational reality takes over. Look at Europe. Daimler Truck is leading the pack. 8% of their heavy new trucks sold are electric.
8% of it.
Yeah, and sure, that's heavily driven by EU targets, but it proves the manufacturing capacity actually exists.
But does the math hold up in the real world? Like when things get messy or freezing cold, a battery in a lab is very different from a battery in a Canadian winter.
That's true, but we have on-the-ground proof now. Dave German shared data from a 12-month pilot in Montreal with Freightliner e-Cascadias running head-to-head against diesel. The electric Class 8 trucks consumed over 60% less energy. Over a 6-year life cycle, that projects to 157,000 Canadian dollars in savings per truck.
Wait, per single truck?
Yes.
That's not a rounding error. If you have 50 trucks, that is transformative capital.
Absolutely. But to your point about the cold, Mark Sella shared some great nuance on electric school buses in Alberta. Cold weather range loss is a harsh reality.
Right. You can't just read a spec sheet and assume it'll do the same ride at negative 20 degrees. So what's the workaround?
Deep route analysis and smart thermal management. Sala pointed out that using an auxiliary diesel heater for the cabin instead of the main battery changes everything.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, it sips a tiny amount of diesel, but preserves the high-voltage battery strictly for propulsion. It dramatically extends range. EVs work in the cold. You just have to engineer the route first.
And we're seeing this rigorous math play out.
Yeah.
Eric Smith posted about seeing unbranded Rivian electric delivery vans on public roads.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Because for years, we just associated Rivian vans with Amazon's corporate fleet. But seeing them unbranded, operating for independent logistics companies...
It proves it's not just a branding exercise anymore.
Exactly. It's basic operational math. Electric vans have fewer moving parts, way better stop-and-go efficiency, and lower fuel costs.
But we can't ignore the millions of existing diesel vehicles out there, right? Like refuse trucks and street sweepers. We can't afford to just replace them all tomorrow.
Right, the transition bridge. Dr. Wilhelm Graupner highlighted a fascinating approach from a company called Ulemco. Instead of scrapping the vehicle, they retrofit the diesel engine.
It's a brilliant bridge. They don't even rip out the engine block. They install a dual-fuel injection system that introduces hydrogen directly into the combustion chamber.
Alongside the diesel.
Exactly. And by displacing the diesel with hydrogen, they instantly cut CO2 emissions by 20 to 40% on an asset the fleet already owns.
That is highly pragmatic. But let's say a fleet does want to go all in on new battery electric vehicles. The harsh reality is, buying the truck is the easy part. The infrastructure is the actual bottleneck that stops fleets dead in their tracks.
Oh, without a doubt. Charging and energy orchestration is the true operational frontier. Ivan Lendowski shared a super practical reality check here.
Hardware isn't the issue, right?
Right. It's grid capacity, local permitting, and utility alignment. Lendowski said fleets need to plan for 6 to 12 months from kickoff to go live.
Ugh, dealing with utility companies always seems to be a black hole.
It's the ultimate bottleneck. You have to submit permits, engineer a load management concept, and then just wait to see if the local transformer can even support you.
Which is exactly why Nick Burke's post caught my attention. He highlighted a startup called Kuro Charging. They basically created a virtual depot platform.
An Airbnb for fleet charging, basically.
Exactly. Think about a massive commercial property, like a retail distribution center. They already went through the nightmare of permitting high-speed chargers.
And those chargers just sit idle all night.
Right. From 6 p.m. to 6 a.m., they do nothing. So Kuro connects fleet operators with those existing commercial properties.
That's incredibly smart. The property owner makes overnight revenue, and the fleet gets reliable charging without waiting 12 months for a grid upgrade.
Exactly. No pouring concrete.
But for the massive logistics players who absolutely must build their own depots, depot economics become everything. Claudio Geiken shared an amazing case study about this.
Oh, with Ridergy and Charge Cloud.
Yes, for HelloFresh. They used AI-supported energy management to optimize depot charging.
So how does an algorithm actively cut costs at a depot? Like, does it just flip chargers off and on?
It's way more sophisticated. The AI throttles charging speeds across dozens of vans simultaneously based on real-time grid rates and specific departure times.
Oh, so if a van doesn't leave until 8 a.m.
Exactly. The AI slows down its charge rate during peak evening pricing to avoid demand charges, and then ramps it up at 3 a.m. when power is cheapest. They slashed energy costs by 28%.
28%. That is a structural competitive advantage for a large fleet.
It's huge.
But there is a massive operational risk hiding there, which Natasha Fry pointed out. For critical fleets, reliability is everything.
Oh, absolutely.
If a high-speed charger fails at 2 a.m., dispatching a physical repair tech is useless. Even if they arrive in 2 hours, the truck misses its departure window. The rate is ruined.
Which is why the industry is aggressively shifting to remote diagnostics. Fry noted the goal should be resolving 70 to 80% of issues remotely.
Just fixing it via software.
Right. An engineer can ping the charger, read a fault code, and digitally reset a relay before anyone even has to visit the site. It prevents the disruption entirely.
So, okay, we've digitized the operations, we've optimized the powertrain, we've automated the depot. The final frontier is really just removing the human constraint altogether.
The connected fleet and autonomy.
Yeah. Jonathan Veladero shared a fascinating look at China's AI delivery vans. These things are on the road today. They don't take lunch breaks, they don't get tired.
They just operate nearly 24/7.
Exactly. And they continuously improve through machine learning. We are looking at machines operating the logistical system end to end.
And it's not just small delivery pods. Joseph Sillis pointed out that heavy-duty autonomous freight trucks are moving goods on public highways in Texas, Arkansas, and Arizona right now.
But they rely on that connected fleet architecture, right?
Yeah, an 80,000-pound truck can't just rely on its own cameras. It requires V2X communication vehicle-to-infrastructure.
So it's talking to the highway.
Literally. It pings upcoming traffic signals to anticipate red lights. It communicates with way stations to verify cargo before taking an off-ramp.
Which brings up a question I've had. Is it a coincidence that all these autonomous robots and trucks are electric? Why not autonomous diesel?
Bill Pierce answered this brilliantly when looking at DoorDash's new delivery robot, Dot. It's not a coincidence. It's dictated by the physical hardware.
Because of the power requirements.
The precise power, yes, but more importantly, vibration. A rumbling diesel engine creates continuous mechanical vibration that literally destroys sensitive optical alignments and computing arrays over time.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about the physical vibration of the engine block.
Yeah, electric drivetrains are fundamentally smooth and vibration-free. They natively route high-voltage power exactly where the sensors need it.
That makes so much sense.
And Pierce pointed out a massive knock-on effect here. The rise of autonomy will massively accelerate EV charging infrastructure globally.
Because the robots need to charge.
Exactly. Billions will be invested to build automated depot networks and high-voltage corridors for these autonomous networks. And that grid capacity will eventually expand access for human-driven fleets, too. It's a compounding feedback loop.
We have covered an immense amount of ground today. From AI dash cams, changing driver psychology, to the brutal math of heavy-duty electrification and the grid infrastructure needed for this autonomous future.
Yeah, and it really all loops back to our initial premise.
Yeah.
The era of the spreadsheet is over. The fleets that are out there right now, testing new vehicle architectures and navigating local utility permitting, they are actively writing the future of the mobility industry.
If you enjoyed this episode, new episodes drop every 2 weeks. Also check out our other editions on electrification and battery technology, future mobility and market evolution, and next-gen vehicle intelligence. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive, and don't forget to subscribe.
But before you go, I want to leave you with one final question to ponder. If AI is now filtering out which maintenance alerts matter, and smart algorithms are deciding when a truck should charge to save 28% on energy, and autonomous platforms are driving the routes themselves, will the fleet manager of the next decade actually manage vehicles at all, or will your job strictly be managing a complex network of competing algorithms?